Hi guys, Dr. Kim Bynum here. I wanted to start doing some videos that I'm going to post on YouTube, mainly because what I'm finding is in my private executive coaching business, I am finding common themes of topics that I end up doing coaching on over and over and over again. And it's just the same topics that keep on coming up, and I want to just share them with you. So I want to get them down, get them documented, and just talk about things that we seem to all have in common, things that we all seem to struggle with at the executive level, probably across the board, but just this is who I come in contact with, who I end up coaching. And so this is going to start sort of a trend of videos that I want to post, and I think YouTube is just a good place to do it. And I'll probably share them on Facebook or LinkedIn, depending on the length. But I'm just randomly starting at one topic that I think is pretty cool. So this Facebook or this LinkedIn or wherever you're watching it, YouTube video, I want to talk a little bit about selling, about sales, and why we tend to feel gross or icky about selling when, as you know, if you've heard me speak about, or if I've coached you on sales and selling, why I think that's so crazy and so ridiculous. I mean, I know why we feel yucky about it, but why I spend so much time trying to coach through why we should have the complete opposite mindset. All right, so first of all, I always start out this topic of sales and selling and trying to get you to do this mind shift by saying, let's go ahead and face the elephant in the room. And that is, whenever we think of the word salesman or salesperson or saleswoman, if I was doing a word association with you, what would you think? Okay, so I say salesman, and what image is conjured up in your brain? Okay, so let's be real. The first thing that I think of is I think of used car salesman, right? So I'm thinking the guy's got this little hat on and he's got his blingy watch and he's like, hey, have I got a deal for you? So we think of words like slimy, pushy, aggressive, sleazy, liar. I don't know, what words are you thinking of when you think of salesperson? All of these things that kind of are negative, right? I mean, I know I never grew up when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old going, hey, I want to be a saleswoman. And yet that's one of the big things that I do is I sell. I sell for a living. In fact, no matter what we do, guys, we're all in the business of selling one way or the other. We're selling our opinions. If we're trying to get a new career, we're selling ourselves. And for most of us, we're in the business of selling a product or service. And for those of us, which is 99.999% of the world, we have integrity and we believe in the product or service that we're selling, right? And so we actually believe that we're helping people with the product or service that we're selling. For example, if I'm coaching, I believe that I have the ability to help you with your bottom line or get better at what you're doing. So I believe that my service is helping you. So then why should I ever feel bad about trying to sell you my service? So if you're in the business, for example, if you're in the business of skincare and you sell skincare, all of the person that sells me my skincare, she believes in her product. She believes it's going to make me look beautiful. And frankly, I believe it, or I wouldn't be purchasing it. So why should she feel like a slimy salesperson when she's selling me a product that she wholeheartedly believes in? Well, she shouldn't. And yet, for most of us that are in the world of sales, which is all of us, we still have these slimy feelings. So I want to talk about why is that, how can we overcome that, and why we should overcome that and not feel that way at all. Okay, so bottom line is, let's talk about why those words and all those yucky, nasty feelings are associated with salespeople. That whole salespeople are pushy, aggressive, slimy, liars. Why is that? So a couple of reasons. Think back to, like, I don't know, Dr. Medicine Woman days, or back in the days where they had the snake oil salesmen that would come around and, they'd sell their elixir, right? What was that elixir? Probably it was some bottle of alcohol, right? And they'd come around and they'd sell you their elixir that would cure all your ails, whatever it was. If you had a cold, if you had a broken arm, if you had a toothache, if you had, whatever it was that ailed you, a headache, whatever, you took this elixir, you drank it up, and it was going to cure all your problems. And guess what? If you did drink it all up, it would cure your problem for that moment, and then the snake oil guy or the elixir guy would be gone in the morning, and then you'd wake up with that hangover, whatever, feeling like crap, and he'd be gone. So, you know, salesmen did maybe get a bad rep because of that. But that's not really the only reason, right? We think about this. We have been kind of programmed, and I'm going to give you some examples of some things that are bad or negative that are some same behaviors that salespeople have to do. Okay, so let me give you some examples. If I were to say something like, children should be seen and not heard, right? You knew what that word was. If I were to say to you, hey, how much money do you make? You'd be like, oh my God, that's the rudest thing. How rude. You don't ask people how much money they make. But what do salespeople have to do? They have to talk about money. They have to talk about budget. Do you have money to afford this car? Do you have money to be able to afford my coaching services? Does your company have money to be able to afford to invest in this IT technology? So we've been taught, for example, that it's not polite to talk about money, and yet salespeople have to talk about money. They have to talk about budget to see if there's going to be able to be an investment in whatever the product or service is, right? So we have to be heard. We have to talk. We have to sometimes interrupt. Like, don't interrupt. That's not polite. But sometimes we have to interrupt as salespeople. So all of these types of messages that are in our head, it's not polite to talk about money. It's not nice to ask so many questions. Look, you knew what that was. What do salespeople have to do? We have to ask a ton of questions. And sometimes we have to ask kind of tough questions. Like, you know, my skincare lady, for example, she has to ask me things like, what do you hate the most about your face? I hate these wrinkles. You know, I hate these zits that pop up. I hate how my face goes like that. I mean, that I had to be vulnerable, right? So we all know these tapes that have been our parents have put in our head. It's not polite to talk about money. Stop asking so many questions. Children should be seen and not heard. And all of these are tapes that have been programmed into our heads. And Dr. Eric Burns is a guy that did studies on transactional analysis way back in the day. And this is all part of Sandler training. You guys know that I'm Sandler trained in sales training. And David Sandler, he adopted this from Eric Burns. It's all transactional analysis. It's science, guys. And these are ego states, this whole parent-child kind of programming. Parents, critical parents, put these rules in our brains of don't do this, don't talk about money, don't ask questions, don't do this stuff. And yet as a salesperson, we have to do these things. And that's why as salespeople, we can feel icky about the very things that we're being required to do in our sales processes, okay? And if you understand that that's just a tape that was in your brain that is part of transactional analysis, and I'm gonna go into that in another video in depth, but if you understand that, then you understand where those are coming from and you can overcome them from a mindset, right? Because in reality, your product or service is not some bad thing that you're trying to push on somebody. It's actually something that you want to provide to your prospect to help them. So in selling, it's not something that you're trying to push off or force on somebody. It's actually something that's going to help solve a problem or a pain that your prospect has. So you're in essence helping them. But in order to help them, you have to do these behaviors that you've been programmed your whole entire life are icky or wrong or yucky, when in fact they're not any of those things. You've just been programmed since you were a little kid that they are. Does that make sense? And does it make it easier for you to understand? And as we dole into what Sandler provides as a selling process that includes some of these behaviors so that you can get to the helping part. And the helping part is nothing else than helping your prospect to discover for themselves that your product or service can help them solve that problem or pain. Because you can't force that understanding for them. You can't beat it over them and say, hey, my product or service can help you. Your job is to help them uncover that knowing for themselves. But that requires you to do these things that you've been programmed to believe are icky, like asking questions, helping them uncover the pain or the need, and then talking about money. Why? Just to ensure if they have the money, the time, money, or resources to solve the pain. So all of these things come together, and I'll do some more videos where we'll talk about more in depth the transactional analysis of how that programming happened and how you can overcome it, and then more about the selling process, which I follow the Sandler selling system. And you'll learn more about that at the summit on September 23rd if you see this video before that, which is in September 23rd, 2019. We'll go more into depth in that for more leadership processes. But this is something that I have seen so many times in my coaching with clients, is just overcoming these icky feelings when really we just want to help our prospect with whatever our product or service is, and we don't understand why we feel so gross in our selling process. And so I just wanted to share with you that it really is coming from this transactional analysis and these ego states, which I'm going to talk about in a separate video, but it's really from this programming that's come from way, way back. And so if you can understand and be aware of that, and then as we talk about the process and the behaviors that are required, and that it's not, there's nothing wrong with asking the questions, talking about money and budget. Those are just feelings that you're having because those are things that were put inside of us when we were younger. It's not polite to talk about money. It's not polite to ask so many questions. It's not, nice to ask all those questions or interrupt somebody. So we'll talk about that further in different videos, but I wanted to share with you as a first step, being aware of where those icky feelings are coming from so that you can decide for yourself, because you're aware now of where that's stemming from, so that you can start to shift your mindset so you can get back to the business of helping people with your product or service and helping them uncover for themselves that your product or service is actually going to be a solution for their problem or pain. Again, this is Dr. Kim Bynum, and I look forward to creating the next video where we'll talk about one of these other topics in depth. If you have any questions, I'll put my links so that you can get in touch with me. It's been great talking to you about this programming and how it's holding us back in our sales.